The bride handed me a broom in front of 300 guests and said, "Since you came with no gift, maybe you can clean up after the people who actually matter." The whole wedding laughed. Her husband laughed. Her brother laughed. Her father laughed the loudest. And I stood there in my old black suit, holding that broom like I was exactly what they thought I was, a broke ex, a failure, a man invited to a luxury wedding just to become the joke. But what nobody at that mansion knew was that the black helicopter flying toward the estate was not part of the wedding. It was mine. And by the time it landed behind the altar, every person who laughed at me would wish they had stayed silent. My name is Marcus Reed. 3 years ago, I was engaged to Jessica Monroe. Jessica was beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare. Long dark hair, calm eyes, and a smile that could make you believe you were the only person in the world. But Jessica was raised in a family where love had a price tag. Her father, Richard Monroe, owned Monroe Luxury Estates, a company that built mansions for athletes, CEOs, politicians, and people who never asked the price before buying anything. Her mother, Linda, looked sweet in public but could destroy a person with one quiet sentence. And her brother, Brandon, believed being born rich was the same thing as being successful. From the first day I met them, they made one thing clear. I did not belong. At family dinners, Richard would look at my hands and smile. "So, Marcus," he once said, "when do you plan to stop working with tools and start working with your brain?" Everyone laughed. Jessica looked down at her plate. She never defended me. Back then, I worked construction during the day and studied finance at night. I drove an old Toyota with one broken speaker. I lived in a small apartment above a laundromat, where the walls shook every time the machines downstairs started spinning. I did not have money, but I had ambition. I had discipline. And I had a plan nobody could see yet. Jessica used to tell me she believed in me, at least when we were alone. She would sit on the floor of my apartment, eating takeout from paper boxes, resting her head on my shoulder. "One day," she would whisper, "you're going to prove all of them wrong." I believed her. That was my mistake. Because some people only believe in you when believing costs them nothing. 2 months before our wedding, I came home late from a meeting in New York. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Her clothes were gone. Her shoes were gone. The framed photo of us at the beach was turned face down on the kitchen counter. Beside it was the engagement ring I had saved 2 years to buy. Under it was a note. 7 words. "I can't marry a man with nothing." I read it once. Then again. Then I sat on the floor until the sun came up. She did not call. She did not text. She did not explain. A month later, I heard she was dating Caleb Whitmore. Caleb came from old money, private schools, country clubs, family offices, a last name that opened doors before he even reached the handle. He was everything Jessica's family respected, a man who looked like success before he ever had to prove anything. Jessica posted a photo with him 3 months after leaving me. She wore the same necklace I had given her. The caption said, "Finally loved the way I deserve." That night I almost broke. Almost. But something inside me refused. I disappeared. Not because I was weak, because I was building. For 3 years, I worked in silence. I slept 4 hours a night. I took meetings in airports. I signed documents in hotel lobbies. I learned how money moved when powerful people did not want attention. The private investment deal I had been working on became a logistics technology company. That company merged with an aviation infrastructure firm. Then came transportation contracts, private terminal projects, luxury aviation partnerships, and real estate holdings hidden behind quiet companies with boring names. By the time Reed Global, Holdings became one of the most valuable private aviation groups in the Southeast. Almost nobody knew I was behind it. I did not do interviews. I did not post cars online. I did not wear diamonds. I learned something important. The loudest person in the room usually needs attention. The most powerful person in the room usually owns the room. 6 months before Jessica's wedding, one of my companies bought the estate where she planned to get married. A white mansion on 80 acres of land. Private lake. Helicopter access. Glass ballroom. Rose gardens. A perfect place for rich people to pretend love and money were the same thing. Jessica did not know I owned it. Richard did not know. Caleb did not know. They were about to celebrate their wedding on my property. Then the invitation arrived. Cream envelope, gold letters, expensive paper. At the bottom, Jessica had written, "Hope you can come. No hard feelings." No hard feelings. As if she had borrowed a jacket and forgotten to return it. As if she had not left me on the floor with a dead future in my hands. I almost threw the invitation away. Then I smiled. because Jessica had opened a door she should have left closed. On the wedding day, I chose my oldest black suit. Not my designer tuxedo, not my custom shoes, not my expensive watch. The old suit. The one Richard once called tired. I drove myself there in an old black sedan I kept in storage. No driver, no security, no luxury entrance, just me. When I arrived at the estate gates, one security guard checked the guest list and smirked. "Marcus Reed," he said. "You're that Marcus." That Marcus. I already knew what that meant. Jessica had told them the story. Not the truth. The story. The broke ex. The sad man from her past. The one she escaped. The guard opened the gate. "Enjoy the wedding," he said. I drove up the long stone driveway past Bentleys, Rolls Royces, and a silver Ferrari parked near the fountain like a trophy. The estate looked beautiful in the afternoon sun. White roses everywhere. Crystal chairs, golden lights, a live string quartet near the garden. Waiters moving through the crowd with champagne trays. Everything looked perfect, expensive, elegant, cold. The moment I stepped out of my car, people stared. Some whispered, "Is that him? The ex? She actually invited him?" I heard a woman say, "That's cruel." She was right. Then Brandon saw me. "Well, well, well," he said loudly. "Marcus Reed." People turned. Brandon walked toward me with champagne in his hand and a grin on his face. "I respect your courage," he said. Not every man would show up to watch the woman who left him marry someone better. A few guests laughed. I gave him a small smile. "Good to see you too, Brandon." He looked at my suit, then my shoes, then back at my face. "You came dressed like the valet." More laughter. I said nothing. That bothered him. Men like Brandon need your pain to prove they are powerful. Silence makes them nervous. Then Richard Monroe appeared. Silver hair, navy suit, gold cufflinks, the same cold smile. "Marcus," he said, "I heard you were coming. Mr. Monroe." He shook my hand with 2 fingers. "I hope this day is not too difficult for you." I looked toward the altar. Then I saw Jessica. She stood at the top of the garden steps in her wedding dress. For 1 second, the noise disappeared. She was beautiful. Her dress looked like moonlight. Her veil moved gently in the wind. Her smile was perfect. But when her eyes met mine, that smile faded. Just for a second. A crack. A flash of surprise. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Then she recovered. She lifted her chin and walked toward me. "Marcus," she said softly. "Jessica." Her eyes moved over my old suit, my simple shoes, my empty hands. "You came. You invited me. I wanted you to see that I'm happy." There it was. Not peace. Punishment. Caleb walked up beside her and placed his hand on her waist. "So you're Marcus," he said. "I've heard a lot." "I'm sure." He smiled. "It takes strength to watch someone else live the life you couldn't provide." The people around us went quiet, waiting for me to break. I did not, because anger is expensive, and I no longer wasted money on people who could not afford the truth. The ceremony began 20 minutes later. I sat near the back. Jessica and Caleb stood under a white floral arch. Caleb promised to protect her, honor her, and give her everything she deserved. Then Jessica read her vows. "Caleb," she said, "you taught me that a woman should never settle for a man who only dreams about the future." A few guests turned to look at me. She continued, "You gave me the life I always deserved." She looked directly at me when she said it. I felt something inside me close. Not break, close. After the ceremony, the reception began on the back lawn. Music played. Champagne flowed. People danced under hanging lights as the sun turned the sky gold. Then Jessica walked toward me with a microphone in her hand. Caleb came with her. Brandon, too. Richard followed behind them. The DJ lowered the music. Jessica smiled at the crowd. "Everyone, can I have your attention for a moment?" The guests turned. My name moved through the crowd in whispers. Jessica looked at me. "As many of you know, Marcus and I have history." Some people chuckled. "He came today without a gift," she said. "But that's okay. Not every gift has to cost money." A waiter stepped forward carrying a broom tied with a white ribbon. My chest went cold. Jessica took it and placed it in my hands. "So since Marcus always wanted to be useful," she said, "maybe he can help clean up after the people who actually matter." For 1 second, nobody moved. Then laughter exploded across the garden. Brandon clapped. Richard laughed into his champagne. Caleb smiled like he had won. Jessica looked proud. I stared at the broom. They had planned this. They had invited me to make me the joke. I could have ended it right there. One phone call, one order, one signature. But I waited. Because then I heard it. A deep sound in the distance. Low, heavy, Rhythmic. At first, nobody noticed. Then the champagne glasses began to shake. The flowers moved. The lights swung. People turned toward the sky. A black helicopter appeared above the estate, cutting through the golden evening. The laughter died. The helicopter descended behind the altar, right where Jessica and Caleb had said their vows. Dust rose from the grass. Guests covered their faces. Jessica's mouth opened. Richard's smile disappeared. My phone buzzed. A message appeared. Mr. Reed, your arrival team is on site, awaiting your signal. The helicopter door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out carrying a black leather case. Every eye turned from the helicopter to me. And for the first time all day, nobody was laughing. The silence was heavier than the helicopter. 300 guests stood frozen on the lawn, holding champagne glasses, staring at me like I had changed shape in front of them. The broom was still in my hand. A moment ago, it was a joke. Now it looked like evidence. Evidence of their cruelty. Evidence of their arrogance. Evidence of how wrong they had been. The man in the dark suit walked toward me slowly. His name was Daniel Brooks, my chief legal officer, former federal prosecutor, cold voice, sharp mind, the kind of man who never needed to raise his tone, because everyone already understood the consequences. Behind him came two assistants. One carried a tablet. The other carried the black leather case. Richard Monroe recognized Daniel immediately. His face changed. Not because he understood everything, because he understood enough to be afraid. Daniel? Richard said, forcing a laugh. What are you doing here? Daniel ignored him. He walked straight to me, stopped, and lowered his head. Mr. Reed. A wave of whispers moved through the crowd. Mr. Reed. Not Marcus. Not Brokex. Mr. Reed. Jessica blinked like her mind rejected the words. Caleb looked from Daniel to me, then down at my old suit, trying to connect two realities that refused to fit together. Brandon's smile faded. I held the broom out to Daniel. Hold this for me. Daniel took it calmly. Yes, sir. The whispers grew louder. Sir? Who is he? Why did the helicopter come for him? Jessica's voice shook. Marcus, what is this? I looked at her. What does it look like? She did not answer. Richard stepped forward, angry now, trying to recover control. This is private property, he said. You can't land a helicopter here. Daniel turned to him. Yes, he said. It is private property. Then remove it. Daniel nodded to the assistant with the tablet. She tapped the screen and turned it toward Richard. This estate is legally owned by Aldercrest Holdings, Daniel said. A private company under Reed Global Holdings. He paused. Marcus Reed is the majority owner. The garden went silent. Richard stared at the tablet. His face changed slowly. The mansion. The lawn. The glass ballroom. The altar. The fountain. The driveway filled with luxury cars. Everything belonged to me. They had humiliated me on my own property. Caleb laughed nervously. This is a joke, right? Nobody laughed. Jessica looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. Richard lowered his voice. Marcus, whatever this is not the place. I looked at him. You had no problem making it the place 5 minutes ago. That shut him up. Brandon stepped forward because arrogance dies slowly. So you bought a house. Congratulations. That doesn't make you important. I smiled faintly. No, but it does make this broom interesting. A few guests looked away. Jessica stepped closer. Marcus, can we talk privately? I glanced at the microphone still in her hand. You wanted this public. Her lips trembled. I didn't know. You didn't know what? I asked. That I mattered? She looked down. Caleb stepped between us. Enough, you made your point. Now leave. I looked around. Leave? Yes, Caleb said. This is my wedding. On my property. A soft gasp moved through the guests. Caleb's jaw tightened. You may own the grass, he said quietly, leaning closer. But I still have the woman. He forgot one thing. Jessica's microphone was still on. His words carried across the speakers. Everyone heard it. Jessica's face went pale. Caleb realized too late. I looked at Jessica. Is that what you are? Something he has? She had no answer, because Caleb had just revealed more about their marriage, in one sentence than the vows had, hidden in 20 minutes. Richard clapped his hands once. Ladies and gentlemen, he said loudly, let's not let an unexpected interruption ruin a beautiful evening. Please enjoy the food and music. This is a family matter. No one moved. The rich love drama until the drama starts pointing at them. Then Daniel leaned toward me. Sir, we should discuss the Monroe-Whitmore contract. That sentence changed the air. Caleb's father, Thomas Whitmore, who had been standing near the bar, suddenly looked up. What contract? Thomas asked. Daniel opened the black case and removed a folder. Reed Global. Holdings has been reviewing a joint aviation development proposal involving Monroe Luxury Estates and Whitmore Capital. Richard's face turned pale. Caleb looked confused. Jessica whispered, "Dad." Daniel continued. We also have evidence that members of the Monroe family attempted to use this marriage to influence investor confidence. Brandon laughed too loudly. This is insane. You're making business accusations at a wedding? Daniel looked at him. No, I'm documenting them. The assistant tapped the tablet. The wedding slideshow on the giant screen disappeared. A video appeared. Brandon was standing inside the estate library earlier that day, speaking to Caleb. His voice came through the speakers. Once Jessica marries Caleb, Dad gets closer to Whitmore financing. The aviation deal becomes easier. Marcus showing up is just entertainment. Let the guests laugh. It makes us look stronger. Caleb's voice followed. And Jessica agreed? Brandon laughed. She wanted him here. She said he needed to see what he lost. The video stopped. The whole lawn froze. Jessica covered her mouth. Caleb turned toward her. You wanted him here? Jessica shook her head. Not like that. But she answered too slowly. That silence betrayed her. I looked at her. You didn't know about every deal, but you knew about the broom. Tears filled her eyes. Marcus, don't. That one word stopped her. Because sometimes one word can carry 3 years of silence. Richard turned to Daniel. What do you want? I answered before Daniel could speak. Nothing. Richard frowned. What? I don't want anything from you. That frightened him more than anger would have. A man who wants money can be bought. A man who wants revenge can be negotiated with. But a man who wants nothing cannot be controlled. Then my phone buzzed again. Daniel's did too. He looked down, then said quietly, Sir, the board is online. They're waiting for your final decision. Thomas Whitmore stepped forward. Final decision on what? I looked at the guests. The ones who had laughed. The ones who had whispered. The ones who had enjoyed watching a man get crushed in public. Then I looked at Daniel. Put them through. The giant screen changed. 6 faces appeared on a live video call. Board members, executives, lawyers, people who controlled money, contracts, aircraft, land, and futures. An older woman on the screen spoke first. Mr. Reed, do we proceed with the Monroe-Whitmore partnership? Richard froze. Jessica stared at me. Caleb's jaw tightened. Brandon's arrogance disappeared. I took the microphone from Jessica's hand. She did not stop me. I looked at the screen, then at the crowd. Before I answer, I said, there's something everyone here needs to understand. My name is Marcus Reed, I said. Some of you know me as Jessica's ex. Some of you were told I was broke. Some of you laughed because you believed that story. No one moved. The helicopter blades still turned behind the altar. The flowers shook in the wind. The lights above the reception tables swung softly. But people don't always hate failure, I continued. Sometimes they hate the possibility that the person they stepped on might rise above them. The words hit the crowd hard. I turned to Richard Monroe. Mr. Monroe, you once asked me when I planned to get a real career. Richard said nothing. You told me hope was not a business plan. I nodded. You were right. Hope is not a business plan. Discipline is. Silence is. Ownership is. And patience. I looked around the estate. Patience is watching people drink your champagne while laughing at the man who bought the bottle. Several guests looked down at their glasses. Daniel handed me a document. 6 months ago, I said, Aldercrest Holdings purchased this estate after Monroe Luxury Estates failed to secure financing. Richard's face dropped. He had tried to buy this mansion. He had failed. And now everyone knew. 4 months ago, I continued, Whitmore Capital submitted a proposal to partner with Reed Global Holdings on a private aviation development project. Thomas Whitmore stepped forward quickly. Marcus, this should be discussed privately. I looked at him. Everyone wants privacy after public disrespect. He stopped. I turned back to the crowd. The plan was simple. Whitmore Capital would provide financing. Monroe Luxury Estates would handle luxury development near private aviation terminals. Reed Global Holdings would provide the aviation infrastructure, land rights, and logistics technology. I paused. Everyone thought the final investor was some invisible billionaire. They could impress later. I looked at Jessica. But there is no invisible billionaire. Then I looked at Richard. There is only me. Gasps moved across the lawn. Brandon shook his head. No, you were nothing. I nodded. Yes, I was broke. I worked with my hands. I lived above a laundromat. I drove a dying car. I stepped closer. But while you laughed at my hands, I learned how buildings were financed. While you mocked my shoes, I walked into rooms you needed your father's name to enter. While you performed wealth, I studied ownership. Brandon's face turned red. And while Jessica was leaving a ring on my kitchen counter, I was signing the first deal that would one day make your family ask for my approval. Jessica began to cry, because now she understood. When she left me, I was not empty. I was unfinished. Caleb turned to her. You really invited him here to humiliate him? Jessica whispered. I didn't think it would go this far. Caleb laughed bitterly. That means yes. Richard rushed forward. Marcus, let's be reasonable. This deal is bigger than one bad joke. I looked at him. A bad joke? The broom was in poor taste, he said. The vows? He stayed silent. The invitation? Nothing. The video? His eyes hardened. That was Brandon being immature. Brandon turned to him. Dad! Quiet, Richard snapped. Fear makes powerful men sacrifice whoever is closest. Thomas Whitmore stepped in smoothly. Mr. Reed, Caleb does not represent Whitmore Capital in this matter. Caleb stared at his father. Just like that, family became business. Publicly, cleanly, coldly. Power protects itself first. Family comes later. I looked at Thomas. Reed Global Holdings does not partner with families that confuse marriage with leverage, humiliation with strategy, and arrogance with leadership. Daniel tapped the tablet. The screen changed again. A risk report appeared. Daniel spoke clearly. Due diligence found undisclosed debt exposure within Monroe Luxury Estates, unresolved permit disputes, and internal communications, suggesting that the Monroe family expected the Whitmore marriage to improve investor confidence. The guests gasped. Richard's empire was bleeding, quietly, elegantly. In designer suits, the broke man was not me. It had never been me. Linda Monroe sat down slowly in the front row. Her silk handkerchief shook in her hand. Jessica looked at her father, then at Brandon, then at Caleb. Her perfect wedding was collapsing from every direction at once. And the worst part was this. No one had lied. The truth was simply being shown in public. Daniel handed me the final approval page. The older woman on the screen asked, Mr. Reed, do we proceed? Everyone looked at me. 3 years ago, I had begged Jessica to choose me. Now her entire world was waiting for me to choose them. I picked up the digital pen. Jessica whispered, Marcus, please. That word almost broke the silence. Please. A word she never gave me when I needed love. A word she found when she needed mercy. I looked at her. For 1 second, I saw the old Jessica. The woman sitting on my apartment floor. The woman laughing over cheap takeout. The woman who once told me I would prove them wrong one day. Maybe she had loved me then. Maybe there had been something real before her fear became stronger than her heart. But love that only survives in private is not strong enough to build a life. I signed. The screen processed the decision. The board member read aloud. Reed Global Holdings formally declines the Monroe-Whitmore partnership. Richard staggered back. Brandon whispered, No! Thomas closed his eyes. Caleb looked at Jessica like she had destroyed his future, but the board member continued. Reed Global Holdings will proceed, independently with the aviation project using alternate financing and a different development partner. That was worse than rejection. I was not canceling the opportunity. I was moving forward without them. Richard stared at me. You destroyed us! I shook my head. No, Brandon exposed you. Caleb revealed you. Jessica invited me. And you all laughed. There was no answer. Only consequences. Jessica stepped toward me, tears falling. Marcus, I'm sorry. I looked at her. I forgive you. Her face softened with hope. Then I said, but forgiveness does not mean access. The hope disappeared. Caleb pulled the white rose from his jacket and threw it onto the grass. This wedding is over, he said. Jessica turned. Caleb! No, he snapped. You wanted your past in the room. Now stay with it. He walked away. Jessica stood alone in her wedding dress, surrounded by flowers, lights, cameras, and the ruins of her choices. But I was not done. Not because I wanted to hurt her more, because there was one final truth that had to be seen. I walked to the gift table. Every eye followed me. At the center was a white envelope with Jessica and Caleb's names written in gold. My envelope. The one they thought I never brought. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was one document. Jessica stared at it. What is that? I held it up. You said I didn't bring a gift. No one breathed. I did. Richard's eyes narrowed. Daniel recognized the document immediately. It was a deed transfer. Not for the mansion, for something bigger. I looked at Jessica. This was meant to be your wedding gift before the broom. Her voice shook. What is it? I said, A 25% ownership transfer in the aviation project. The crowd gasped. Richard's face collapsed. Thomas Whitmore stepped forward.
What?
I continued. Before tonight, I considered giving Jessica and Caleb a silent equity position. Not because she deserved it, not because I owed her anything, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I had moved on. Jessica covered her mouth. I told myself that maybe success without bitterness was the real victory. Looked at the broom in Daniel's hand. But then you gave me that. The silence became painful. I folded the document. So the gift is revoked. Daniel took the paper from my hand. Jessica whispered, Marcus. I looked at her one last time. You didn't lose a broke man today. I paused. You lost the one man who would have given you the world without making you beg for it. Nobody spoke after that. The music had stopped. The champagne had gone warm. The wedding cake stood untouched beneath the white lights. Beautiful and useless. Jessica stood in front of me with tears running down her face. For the first time all day, she did not look like a bride. She looked like someone finally seeing the cost of her own choices. Richard stepped forward again, but slower now. His voice was no longer sharp. Marcus, he said, please, we can fix this. I looked at him. No, Mr. Monroe, you can repair business mistakes. You can't repair character in public after hiding it in private. His face tightened. Brandon suddenly spoke. This is too much. You came here to ruin us. I turned to him. No, I came here to watch a wedding. I looked at the broom in Daniel's hand. You turned it into a lesson. Brandon had nothing to say. Caleb returned with his father near the edge of the lawn. His expression was cold now. Not hurt, cold. Thomas Whitmore looked at Richard and said, Whitmore Capital is withdrawing from all Monroe-related discussions immediately. Richard's eyes widened. Thomas, don't be emotional. Thomas adjusted his cufflinks. This is not emotion. This is reputation management. Caleb looked at Jessica. I don't know what hurts more, he said. That you invited him, or that you still needed him to see you win. Jessica tried to speak, but no words came. Caleb shook his head. I married you 1 hour ago, and somehow I already feel like the second choice. Then he walked away. This time his groomsmen followed. That was when the guests began leaving. Slowly at first, then faster. Luxury cars pulled from the driveway. Women gathered their purses. Men avoided Richard's eyes. Some people avoided Jessica. Others looked at me with shame, as if they wanted to apologize but had no courage. The perfect wedding emptied like a theater after the final scene. Jessica remained. Richard remained. Brandon remained. Linda Monroe sat silently in the front row, her hand over her mouth. The woman who once looked at me like I was dirt now could not meet my eyes. Daniel came beside me. Sir, security is asking whether to clear the property. I looked at Jessica. Her makeup was ruined. Her dress dragged through the grass, the same grass where people had laughed at me. No, I said. Let them leave with dignity. Daniel nodded. Jessica looked surprised. Maybe she expected cruelty. Maybe she wanted it. Cruelty would have made me easier to hate. But calm mercy is harder to escape. I started walking toward the helicopter. Then Jessica called my name. Marcus. I stopped. She walked toward me slowly. The wind lifted her veil behind her like a torn flag. I know I don't deserve an answer, she said. But did you ever really love me? The question hurt more than I expected, because the answer was not complicated. Yes, I said. Her face broke. I loved you when I had nothing. That was the purest version of me. She wiped her tears. And now? I looked at the mansion behind her. The flowers, the broken wedding, the guests leaving, the father who had used her, the husband who had abandoned her, the brother who had exposed her. Now, I said, I love myself enough not to return to people who only recognize my value after the world claps for it. She cried harder. But I felt no victory in it. That surprised me. I thought revenge would feel hot, like fire. But real justice felt quiet, like closing a door without needing to slam it. Richard stepped forward one last time. Marcus, I was wrong about you. I nodded. Yes, you were. He swallowed. I underestimated you. No, I said. You underestimated kindness. You thought because I was polite, I was weak. You thought because I stayed silent, I had nothing to say. His eyes fell. That mistake will cost you more than money. He looked up. What do you mean? I looked toward the almost empty lawn. Money can be rebuilt. Reputation takes longer. Character takes longest. For the first time, Richard Monroe looked small. Not poor, small. There is a difference. Daniel opened the helicopter door. Before I stepped inside, I turned back. I took the broom from Daniel. Then I walked to the altar and placed it gently against the floral arch. Everyone watched. I looked at Jessica. Keep it, I said. Not as a joke. As a reminder, she whispered. Of what? I stepped closer, just enough for her to hear me clearly. That the people you step on might one day own the ground you're standing on. Her lips parted, but no answer came. I walked back to the helicopter. The blades began spinning faster. Dust lifted again. Jessica stood in the middle of the ruined wedding, holding the revoked future in her eyes. Richard stared at the ground. Brandon looked lost. Caleb was already gone. As the helicopter rose, I looked down through the window. The estate looked smaller from above. So did the people. The white altar. The empty chairs. The broom leaning against the flowers. For 3 years, I thought I needed them to regret what they did. But as the mansion disappeared beneath the clouds, I realized something. Their regret was not my freedom. My freedom was no longer needing them to understand my pain. That night, the story spread across Atlanta. Not because I posted it. I didn't need to. Guests talked. Videos leaked. People whispered about the broke ex who arrived with nothing and left in a helicopter. Monroe Luxury Estates lost investors within weeks. Whitmore Capital cut ties. Brandon disappeared from public events. Jessica deleted every wedding photo. And me? I moved forward. The aviation project broke ground 8 months later. New partners. Cleaner money. Better people. At the opening ceremony, Daniel stood beside me near the runway. A private jet lifted into the sky, shining in the morning sun. Daniel looked at me and asked, "Do you ever think about that wedding?" I kept my eyes on the aircraft. "Yes. And?" I smiled. "I'm grateful." Daniel looked surprised. "For the humiliation?" "No," I said. "For the lesson. Because the truth is, Jessica did not destroy me. Her family did not destroy me. Their laughter did not destroy me. They revealed the version of me that pain had been building all along. Some people leave you because they think you have nothing. Let them. Some people laugh when you are still becoming. Let them. Some people only respect you when the helicopter lands. By then, it is already too late. Because the greatest revenge is not making them cry. It is becoming so powerful, so peaceful, and so far beyond them, that even their apology no longer has a place to land.